Good morning.
Good morning.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. So welcome to First Parish in Framingham. We are a welcoming congregation, so whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. We welcome you here in the meeting house or on Zoom, or wherever or whenever you may be watching the service in the future. I'm Michael Packard. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I am your worship associate this morning. Be sure to read the announcements in the order of service. Immediately following the worship, you are invited to join us for coffee hour in Scott Hall across the breezy courtyard. Please take a moment to turn off your phones or other devices, or turn them to your quietest settings. I have mine on its quietest setting, but it's on for sure. While beeps and buzzes can be distracting, we welcome your human noises, especially the sound of your singing. So please, when it's time, join in. Since 1701, people have gathered into this community to rest or recharge, to be challenged or armed. Those people are like you. You belong here, maybe only for the next hour, but we hope for longer. And we are very happy to have you with us here. Now I invite you to take a deepening breath in and out. Continue to take a few more breaths and to begin to release whatever it is you need to let go of to be more fully present to yourself, to one another, and to the sacred in this time and place. A flame with a chalice is a primary symbol of the Unitarian-Universalist faith tradition. To symbolize the light of reason, the warmth of community, and the spark of hope, it is our tradition to begin our worship by kindling the flame of our chalice. These words for worship are from our chalice setting, are from Kalidasa. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all that verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of achievement, are but experiences of time. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. And today, well lived, makes yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Now I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing our opening hymn, number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. We'll sing it 3 times through, and please remain standing for our song and words of affirmation. is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve all life with compassion, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. This is our great covenant, one with another and with our God.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm Lauren Strauss, the Director of Religious Exploration here at First Parish. I use she, her pronouns, and I would love to say with you all, good morning and welcome to church. And let's try a new one. Happy.
Happy.
It goes up. New.
New.
Year.
Year.
Yay! All right, so I tried to count this morning, and I can't remember how many years. I've been choosing a word for my year, a focus word. I started doing this at least 10 years ago. It might be longer. And I would put that word for the whole of the year. Everywhere I would see it. It would wind up on my calendar pages, so I'd put it on my month page or my week page so that I could keep reminding myself of my word. Does anybody else do a practice kind of like that? Words of the year is kind of common. Yeah? And for a long time, there's a website called My Intent, and they made little charms that you could put your word on. So I have a bunch of charms. Dante's excited. So this one's from 2 years ago, and my word then was lagom, which is Swedish for I am enough. It's sort of one of those words in Swedish that means like something you can't quite translate, but it's the sense of enoughness, right? That you're doing everything exactly the way you should be doing it for that moment in time. Last year, we had rocks, and I was like, oh. So last year, I decided to get a little fancy, and I took my rock, and my word was actually a phrase, which I try not to do because it doesn't fit on the charms. But it fit on the rock. So my phrase last year was listen to my inner voice. And I took my rock and I put the words on it, and then I did like a little mandala kind of design. It's not really a mandala. Anybody who looks at it will notice it's not like symmetrical in various directions, but I made little dots and it's really pretty. And it sat on my desk all year, and it's a nice hefty rock, so when I really need a reminder, I can put it in my pocket, and it's a good way to ground. This year, I didn't have to think too much. I sometimes go through a lot of rituals to get to my word. Like, I'll do a tarot card reading or 2 or 3 just to see if I can narrow down like how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking about. We'll do some meditation, I'll talk to people. And this year, I didn't have to do that at all. I knew exactly what word I want for 2025, and that word is love. And that is 100% because of the beautiful message in Unitarian Universalism that love is at the center of everything we do. And I want to remind myself to ground myself in love when I make decisions, or when I am angry, or when I'm really happy. I want to think about how that is connected to love, to all the different kinds of love that we've talked about. And so this year, I'm going to take a rock. We have rocks in RE, so we're going to go over to RE and we're going to do our own rocks. And I'm probably going to, the one thing I regret with this rock is that I did not paint a base color because the words don't pop. It's hard to see. So I'm going to paint it with a light base color, and then I'm going to do the words and the design around it. You don't have to get that fancy, but you all in this room, there's this whole big thing of rocks up here, and you're going to have a chance to bring something forward with you for the year on a rock. And now, the children teachers and I would love it if you would sing us out to religious exploration classes.
I am the Reverend Stockwell Wisman, the senior minister. I use he, him pronouns, and now we enter the time in our service that we have set aside for sharing of the things which weigh deepest on our hearts, our milestones, our happy and sad occasions. We share them because we know that joy shared is joy expanded, and sorrow shared can feel as though someone is lifting a burden. You can submit your joys or sorrows either online or at the book that is normally at the back of our sanctuary. Today we return to singing an old but new hymn, There Is a Love. We sang it in the first part of 2024, and we return to it so that we have a new song to carry on our hearts. Dean, I'm going to call an audible here. Would you play through the hymn once so we all have it back on our hearts and in our minds? These are the sorrows of our community. Terry Dixon shares this sorrow, a candle of concern for Matilda Beege, who suffered a stroke this week, holding her and her family in the light and in my heart. This sorrow from Anne and Dean Arvidsson. On December 28th, Anne's mother passed away. Visiting hours for Marie will be tomorrow from 4 to 7 at John Everett and Sons Funeral Home in Natick. A funeral service will follow the next day at 10:30. I will officiate. That will also be at Everett and Sons Funeral Home. Kathy Mello shares this sorrow. After a long struggle with various health issues, my dear friend Tom passed away on New Year's Day in Florida. Thank you all for keeping him in your thoughts while he was in the hospital. Dave and Diane Marks share this sorrow, noting the passing of a dear friend and neighbor. We share this concern with Ben Long, who writes, my dad is currently in rehab. Carol and Bob Boyce share this concern. We are keeping our friend Bob Brody in our thoughts after his wife passed away suddenly on December 23rd. Let us sing the first verse of There Is a Love Holding Me. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that And these are the joys of our gathered community. Kevin shares this joy. I am grateful for the opportunity that a new year brings to refocus and recast a guiding star. Dave Doucette shares this joy and concern, I see both are marked, visiting my brother-in-law at a nursing facility after church. And Tom Greeley shares this joy, celebrating 6 years of wedded bliss with my wife, Judy. So with bliss and joy on our hearts, let us sing another time through of There is a Love holding us. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love. And we light one final candle for all of the joys and all of the sorrows, too great to share, but yet remain on our hearts. So now we turn to a time where we can deepen into ourselves, where we can sink into the pew that is supporting us, or the chair or the bed, wherever we are as we watch and participate, feeling the strength of this gathered community. O Spirit of life and love, named and unnamed, but who calls us each by our true first name, which is beloved. We give thanks for this day, that we saw the sun rise or felt its warmth on our face, that we can return to joy, that we can return to quiet. We give thanks for all that we have: a roof above our heads, food in our bellies, and walls sheltering us from the bitter cold. We know that it did not have to be this way, and so we are grateful. We know, too, that there is much that weighs heavy on our hearts. We mourn the loss of loved ones, whether it was last week or years ago. Our loved ones remain close when we speak their names. We know, too, that there are people in our community and in our congregation who struggle or live with addiction, illness, and loneliness. May we find ways to lend a helping hand and a listening ear. And when that isn't enough, may we remember the power of our presence simply by showing up. Our world is beautiful and it is also broken. May we find ways to rebuild and reconnect, to bring peace to all of the war-torn parts of our world and of our lives. Showing up in community does that. Speaking truth to those in power does that. Remembering what are deeply held values does that as well. And from time to time, our humanity shows a little bit too much, which is beautiful. And sometimes we also say things that we didn't mean to, or we withhold things that we didn't mean to. We put up barriers between ourselves and others, and the beauty of the world around us, and perhaps even of the divine. Because we are breathing, because we woke up today, there is chance to rebuild, to reconnect, and to reach out beyond the barriers. It begins by saying, I'm sorry. It begins by saying, here is how I will do better. May all that is holy hear these words. May it be so, and amen. And now we rest for a little bit longer. Let us sit in the quiet of this house so that we might rest or do absolutely nothing for the next minute. That is your only job. Though our time of quiet has ended, the good news is that we can return to that center at any point during the week by simply focusing on our breath and setting aside time and returning to that center.
As we prepare to take this morning's offering, may each of us look not just into our wallets or our checkbooks to see how much we have with us. Let us look into our hearts as well, as we see what is available there. How much love, how much generosity, how much faith, how much gratitude, how much hope. Let us take our offering from that account. If this is your first time joining us, you are invited to just let the offering pass. Now receive the morning offering.
I think you know this story. I have told it here before. It is the story of the stream by Awad Afifi, the Tunisian. And in this story, we have rain falling from the sky. And rain is beautiful because it falls without calculation or practice. And then the rain, it reaches the mountain and the streams, and it turns into a beautiful mountain brook. And there are rocks that are interrupting the stream. But the good thing about the rocks is the stream that sings most nobly is the one that meets rocks. This is how it babbles and gurgles. And then the stream gets to the desert, and its goal is to cross the desert. But it does not want to change. It is so into being liquid. It loves the droplets and the rivulets and now the beautiful body of water that it says, I do not want to change. And because this is the kind of story where water has thoughts, water can also talk. And because this is the kind of story where water can talk, the wind can also talk as well. So the wind and the water, they get into a conversation. And the water says, I want to cross the desert. And the wind says, well, I can help. And the water says, how? And the wind says, well, I can transport you into water vapor. And you will turn into a cloud, and that is the way that you will cross the desert. And the water says, no, I like being liquid. And the wind says, well, you cannot get to where you want to be by remaining who you are. Either give yourself over to me or turn into a swamp at the end of the desert. So finally, after trying really, really hard to get across the desert, the water says, fine, wind, I give in. And the water turns into vapor, turns into a cloud, crosses the desert where it meets the mountains once again. And the cycle continues. Khalil Gibran wrote, it is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled from the peaks of the mountains, the long, winding road crossing forests and villages. And in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The river cannot go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear. Because that's where the river will know it's not about disappearing into the ocean, but it is about becoming the ocean. At the beginning of the year, we invite you to give some part of yourself over to the water of our gathered community, to the water that we collected at the beginning of the year. It held some of the tears at the Blue Holidays Vesper service, and now it will hold the things that you wish to let go of from 2024, so that you can enter into 2025 not completely unburdened. I do not offer that sort of power. Neither does the ritual, I know. I wish it did. But just a little lighter. As you entered, I hope that either Dave or Deb gave you a little piece of dissolving paper. If not, we can raise your hand and we'll run and get you some. Anybody need that paper? All right, a few people. Kevin, are you on it? Great. Keep your hands held high. Share it. If you have some, rip it into an even smaller piece. This is always a challenging service to predict how many people will show up for it. This is another way that we release our burdens, by sharing and by improvising. There's some, Diane and Larry also need some paper. Got leftovers. Everybody got some? Great. You're good up there? Great. So I find that writing, the thing that you want to let go of with pencil is usually best, but write whatever you want to let go of with whatever implements you have. Once you have that word or phrase written down, I invite you to come forward to this white bowl and release it. This paper dissolves. So whenever you are ready, come forward. Dean, some music would be lovely. So there is another story about the power of making sure you put the big rocks into your life first. I think I heard this story at some Boy Scout training, written originally by Stephen Covey, the leadership consultant. And in this story, Stephen Covey is teaching a class, or maybe it's a professor of some sort. And he has this big jar that he places on the podium at the front of his lecture hall. And first he puts in the really big, no, he puts in the small gravel first, fills it to the top. And then he tries to put the larger rocks in, and he is unable to. So he says, okay, let's reverse that order a little bit. He puts the big rocks into the jar, and he asks the class, is this full? And some folks in the class say, yes, the jar is full. So then he pours gravel into it. And then he asks, is this jar full? And by now, some of the folks are onto him, and they say no. And he pours sand in, he pours water in. And then he asks, is this full? And inevitably, there's some wise guy who says, no, it's not completely full, but the majority of the people in the class say, yes, this is full now. The professor says, this is what you need to do. You need to remember to put the big rocks in first. Things like family or friends or the values that you hold most dear. You need to put those in first, because otherwise you may not have enough room. The poet Richard Brautigan writes this in his poem titled Karma Repair Kit. Items 1 through 4. 1, get enough food to eat and eat it. 2, find a place to sleep where it is quiet and sleep there. 3, reduce intellectual and emotional noise until you arrive at the silence of yourself and listen to it. And 4, here ends our reading. At the beginning of the year, we also invite you into a time of intention setting. We have rocks. I hope we have enough rocks. It is so good to see all of you here. I think we do. I think we do have enough rocks. You are invited to write a word or a phrase that will serve as your touchstone, as your ballast for the coming year. A value that you hold dear that will serve to center you as the years go on. So think of that word. And then I invite you to come forward to the basket that is right underneath the pulpit. We have good permanent Sharpie markers to write those down, and bring that rock home. Carry it around with you or place it in a place where you will see it every day. If you want to get really creative, and I hope some of you might paint over your rock with some other paint. Make this value your own. So once you have that word or phrase that will serve as your guiding star or your touchstone, come forward. Write it on the rock and take that rock with you. I'm not sure if you are the kind of people who make New Year's resolutions. Are you? Don't need to show any hands. Exactly. Some of us make intentions, others set goals. I think the last time that I actually tried to make New Year's resolutions was probably January of 2020. We all know how well the rest of those 9 months went of that year. Between the global pandemic and a cross-country move, I lost the only recording that I had of those goals, some sheet of paper that was on my desk that then got packed up and unpacked and totally lost. It seems many of us are similarly poor at keeping New Year's resolutions, and we do not need a global pandemic or our houses violently swept of their furniture, as the poet Rumi writes about, to loosen our grip on our resolutions. I often cite this at the beginning of the year because it makes me feel comfortable. These statistics are by now a decade old. A writer from an Ohio State University said, researchers suggest that only 9% of Americans that make resolutions complete them. 9%. In fact, research goes on to say that 23% of people quit their resolution by the end of the first week. So it's getting to quitting time, folks, for 23% of you. And 43% quit by the end of January. An Australian study found that the typical reasons for failing a New Year's resolution were that the goal was unrealistic, they were unable to keep track of the progress, or they just forgot about it. Others said that they made too many resolutions. For me, I've found that in my personal life, I can justify forgetting about a goal pretty easily. Almost as easily as I find that I have the space to make a goal, convincing myself that it is always time to start a new goal. There's always some new year according to someone's calendar. A new church year, January, a new semester, a new season, Lent or Advent, National Poetry Month, whatever. Find a good reason to start a goal, and I find a good reason to end it, or I just forget it. There's always a new time frame, always a new time to set a goal. If I had $1 for every goal that I set and did not achieve, I'd be pretty wealthy. Any year of our lives brings with it sorrows and sadness too, meanness and despair. And any year of our life could also be the best year possible. The truth is, and I'm sure the math checks out here, that on the day you were born, someone else completely unconnected to you or your family, somebody else somewhere died. The day you fell in love, someone else ended a relationship. The day you got a job, someone was fired or resigned or retired. And the opposite is true as well, I think, statistically speaking. The day you die, someone else somewhere will be born. The day despair comes to your family, joy will enter someone else's house as well. The poet wrote, "Joy and woe are woven fine." Sabina Salisi wrote this, "Each of us navigates our life with principles. Whether consciously or unconsciously, my commitments to honor life, be generous, communicate honesty, and cultivate clarity. These are the foundation of my being. Remembering these values as I ground, know, and love, connect myself, These guide my belonging. Because of this, and because joy and woe are woven fine, and because we live in unprecedented times, I hope we consider our values as a sense of ballast. They will be key for us to remember, much as they have always been key for us to remember. For me, each year there is a little bit of excitement as the calendar rolls around. But this New Year's, there was a little bit of a grim feeling to it. Even though I know there will also be amazing and beautiful things. Each of us seeing 365 days, there's a good chance that we will see joy. We'll also probably see some terrible things some of those days. I wrote in the sermon, it is likely that it is the state of the world that is coloring my thoughts, but it is the state of the world that is coloring my thoughts. I know exactly where this grim feeling comes from. Maybe it is the anti-democratic document that the Heritage Foundation released, Project 2025, that has created an association with me in my mind of the year 2025 as being a bad one from the very get-go. As is said in every Star Wars film, I have a bad feeling about this. I was feeling this as I was watching the ball drop with some of Lizzie's friends in Michigan, thinking to myself, I cannot imagine wearing 2025 on those goofy glasses that they wear in Times Square. But maybe they have a different outlook on life, and maybe I should adopt it as well. Not seeing into the year, but seeing through the year. New Year's Eve had the feeling like being at the top of that first hill of a roller coaster. Right before the chain clicks off from the train, and away we go down a track that we did not design, but will be forced to endure the twists and the turns. I'm not optimistic about the year, but I will still look for the small wins and the joy. In the midst of this world, I hope you will consider the words that you wrote on your stones as values, as your ethics. Someone in 2016 on the internet wrote, "Write down what you value." You'll be put in situations where you will be challenged and forced to change who you are. Timothy Snyder, who writes an awful lot about tyranny and how humans resist it, has a 20-step plan for resisting tyranny. It's called On Tyranny. It is a fairly quick read, though it is not a nighttime read. Don't read it alone, read it with friends. The 20 ways that he writes about are how to resist tyranny based on examples that he has seen in the 20th and 21st century. Number 3 in particular is a curious one. Snyder writes, recall professional ethics. When the leaders of state set a negative example, professional commitments to just practice become much more important. It is hard to break a rule of law state without lawyers. It is hard to have show trials without judges. I realize I've taken this really deep and dark and serious real quick here. But it's always a good day to recall what your ethics are. If your line of work has or had professional ethics, turn to those. Or maybe you do not work in a career that has them, then the selection of a touchstone word may be just as good. This may all help us to live the next several years of our lives. Call them touchstones or perhaps words that will guide us towards some great wholeness or holiness. Some call that great wholeness the kingdom of God, others the kingdom or the commonwealth. like the wise men or the magi who followed a star, words that will shine brightly as a star. Like a beacon guiding sailors from their tempest-tossed seas to still and safe harbors. Charles Bukowski wrote, "Can you remember who you were before the world told you who you should be?" I'm not certain that Bukowski had leaders in mind, but he may have. Society is awful quick to tell us how we should be, after all. Can you remember who you were before the world told you who you should be? My friends gathered here, we each have a choice today or any day. How will we choose to center love? Or how will we choose to center the value that you wrote on your stone? What will it look like when you center that value? How will you know that you have done that? It'll look different for each of us, I am sure. This choice of a word, this center point, this lodestar, this North Star, it would likely be the same no matter what year, because that is what we chose to do as Unitarian Universalists of this freely chosen faith. If love is the doctrine of this church, and we say that it is every Sunday morning, how will we respond to a world that seeks to distance and discriminate? This work, centering love, is our work. Let us begin. May it be so, and amen. So let's rise in body or spirit to sing hymn number 108. My Life Flows On, an Endless Song. And so as we leave this friendly place, we extinguish the flame of our chalice, but we keep that flame glowing in our hearts until we return to this friendly place. Let us now go out into the world, carrying that light, using it to brighten our pathways, And when we need to rest or recharge, be challenged or affirmed, may that light guide us safely back. May we hold the light always, and the light hold us always. Amen, and go in peace.